the best thing for everyone is for search marketing to continue to grow. And the only way it will continue to grow is if it stays focused on delivering value to customers. If we get cocky, if we start to believe our own publicity and believe the publicity of that the industry is growing at such a phenomenal rate that nothing could ever go wrong, then I think we'll come a cropper. You know, we've seen that movie before on the internet. It was called banner advertising. None of us ever thought anything could go wrong with it. Well, the market told us very loud and clear. Customers voted with their wallets, and late in the year 2000 they voted overwhelmingly to pull their money out, and all of the players, Yahoo included, ourselves included, really got hammered by the end of the banner advertising industry. Now, I don't think that'll happen with search marketing, because I think search marketing is a very different beast, but the cautionary note for the industry is let's not believe our own publicity too much. Let's stay focused on value for customers. If customers don't make money out of the money they spend with us, they will stop spending it, and we've got to be intensely focused on making sure that every dollar they spend turns into a lot more than a dollar.
So who would you say then is your competitor? Or substitute at least?
Look, I think, you know, the company that we bump up against, I guess, most in distribution discussions and to an extent with our customers is a company called Find What in the US. Impressive company. You know, they came from nowhere a few years ago and they built a great product, great team. You know, they deserve a lot of credit for the work that they've done over the last few years, and they've helped to show that there is this second-tier market out there. We think there's room for both, but we also think we bring a few things to the table that they don't have. And I guess our challenge over the coming year is to make sure that the mission statement of quality traffic at a more reasonable price is operationally true rather than just true on a PowerPoint. Find What and ourselves, I think, are both striving for those kinds of positions, but you know, I think we bring some things to the table that they don't necessarily have.
Companies approaching LookSmart, has any company approached in the past or for a merger or
You know, no one's knocking at my door today. You know, we've got a very simple view on these things. We think that we can make a lot more money for shareholders by creating sustainable profits over the coming years. We think we can do that by building this market based on quality traffic at a more reasonable price. If someone walks in with a big box of cash and says it's worth more to them than it is to us, we'll always listen. But we're not out there trying to sell the company. We're out there trying to build the company. And as a management team, the worst possible thing I as CEO or my management team could do would be to spend our time thinking about that problem. If we divert our attention from quality traffic at a more reasonable price for even a minute, we'll end up making a lot of mistakes. The right answer for this company is to rebuild profitability. It's to rebuild its relationships with customers and distribution partners. It's to stay focused on those things, and what will be from there. Our job is to create value for shareholders, and it's up to the shareholders to decide eventually how that value gets translated into cash. But I can only do that as a CEO, and my management team can only do that by staying very focused on an operating plan, not by worrying or shadow boxing potential acquirers.
What about, would you consider buying companies then?
You know, we're always interested in growth, whether it's via organic growth or via acquisition. I tend not to I tend not to discriminate on these things. The right answer for the company is to grow profitably. Whether it grows via its own efforts or via acquisition, you know, is really just a pragmatic choice on a case-by-case basis. There's some pretty hefty valuations out there for internet search-related companies right now, and you know, I'm not sure whether they'll be sustained. So we look carefully at a bunch of things that come across our table. We're interested in both traffic and technology, and so we'll look at a bunch of things over the coming months. We'll make the right calls for shareholders. I've got a pretty high financial bar for acquisitions. You know, I'm not interested in acquisitions that bleed cash for any serious point of time. That's just not something that a company in our shape can afford to do. So, you know, while we'll look at things, the financial criteria are tough, as are the strategic criteria. You know, something's got to really help us grow, and it's got to be a pretty significant percentage of growth for me to get interested in it.
What would be those strategic criteria that you're looking at?
Well, you know, obviously the core of our strategy is quality traffic at a more reasonable price. So things that can help us with quality, things that can help us with traffic, or things that can help us with making sure that our prices are more reasonable and help automate more things at our end and change our cost structure. You know, those are the sorts of technologies or traffic sources that I'll be interested in. As I say, there's nothing that's come across my table in the last few days that makes me excited. But we keep a pretty close eye on it. Again, however, as a management team, you don't want to get too distracted by opportunities. You want to be pretty focused on your operating plan and pretty focused on your current customer base. If you don't satisfy your current customer base, no acquisition will save you. And we've learnt that lesson, and I think we're pretty intensely focused on making sure that our customers stay happy.
In terms of lock-in power, like a lot of analysts are talking about lock-in power, i.e. Google's foray into now webmail.
Yep. What
about with LookSmart? What are you looking at?
I can confidently announce that we will not be launching email. I think, look, Google's strategy makes sense. Clearly, they have great customer relationships and a great brand, and they really only had one product. They were only making money through one mechanism, effectively through search ads. And they've added more distribution through the AdSense network and now email. That's a pretty logical path, and I would expect them to do a lot more things like that over the coming year to 2 years. We're not in a position where we can manage that many projects at one time. We can't spread our bets as widely as a company like that might be able to. I guess in the near term, our lock-in power comes from the size of the network and having many, many more partners being added, and we're adding partners at a pretty healthy clip right now. But clearly in the longer term, there are some issues that we need to consider about compelling content and making sure that we can obtain some percentage of proprietary traffic. As I said earlier about the branding question, it's an expensive business, and you want to be very confident before you start putting down big bets there. But we're always interested in looking at toolbars and those sorts of things that might lock in the user base a little more concretely. And I expect that over the coming months and quarters, we'll have some more to say on that.
Industry questions. What's your take on Google's strategy and Overture's strategy? Because they're quite different in terms of distribution partners and going direct.
Sure. Look, I think in the long run they might not end up being that different. Both of them are owned. Both of their advertising products are now owned by large proprietary traffic owners. Google and Yahoo represent a pretty significant chunk, well over 50% in just about every market of the search market. So in the long run, their number one priority will be maximising the value of their own network. They still distribute to other people, and I think that will continue, but there's so much inventory on the Google and Yahoo pages that's I suspect where their focus will lie. But I think they've. People often ask me whether I think Google and Yahoo have challenges. Of course they do. Now, I'd rather have their problems than my problems some days. But I think we respect them. We think that both of them have done a great job in building and rebuilding, and both of them will continue to be wildly successful. Our stance on that is that their success creates our opportunity, and everything I've seen, particularly about the US market, every industry example I've seen over the last 30 years of how the US economy's developed, tells me that when strong players like the Googles and Yahoos grow, it creates an opportunity for others coming in behind. No one would have predicted Walmart, as you said earlier, to be a success 30 years ago. No one would have predicted Southwest Airlines. Maybe one day people will say no one would have predicted LookSmart.